That was a whole thing to get through that. I was like,
Sorry, what happened?
no, it's fine. I've just never been on this before. So I was
Me
just
neither.
like,
I discovered it and I was like, I'm gonna try it.
try it. Yeah. No, it's great. New
Yeah,
technology.
I know.
How are you?
Well, I'm good. I'm good. It's
Yeah.
very snowy here today.
Wow.
So it's, and I've just moved my desk to the window because I was in like a corner over there. And so
Yeah.
today I'm like, oh, it's just really pretty.
Yeah. It's like so bright there, and here it's like going dark. It's very odd.
Yeah, opposite. How you
Yeah.
doing? What you up to?
Yeah. What am I up to? Oh my God, so many bits and bobs. It's very it's that time of the year where it's like setting up for the rest of the year and like bits of things of here and there, but obviously doing lots of stuff where I'm looking after the kids
Mm-hmm.
and also doing things where I'm doing like a music video next week, which doing some choreography and in it, which I've not ever done before, which will be cool.
What, as in you've not choreographed a music video or not choreographed something that you've been in as well?
Both, all the above.
Okay,
Yeah. So
cool.
that would be cool to, and I know the director, so that would be cool to kind of work with him in that capacity because I've never worked with him in that capacity before. We were both actors years ago,
Okay.
so that would be cool. And doing some workshops, and yeah, that's it at the moment. Yeah.
Nice. Busy.
Yeah, it's always like busy, especially when you have kids. You know, any moment you have, it's like filled up with them. So yeah, no, it's but obviously planning, also I'm doing a lot of planning at the moment. I'm making much a transitional kind of time, I guess, from like performer to creative and making my own work and things like that. So it's kind of all the kind of meetings and going to press
Mm.
nights, and which actually has been quite nice. Going to press nights and going to see shows I never really get to do because I'm always in them. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
really nice to go, well, I'm not always away from my family, so I can go and see shows and actually experience this great, art form and not feel like I'm always on stage
Yeah.
knackered. Yeah, so that's been really that's been really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I recognize that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So are you
So
are you are you wanting to completely stop performing now, or are you wanting to just focus more on creative side and do a bit of performing, or?
yeah, I think that like more creative side and do a bit of performing, less so on stage because it just
Okay.
is because I've done so much of it like over the last 20 years
Mm-hmm.
and it's changing quite dramatically. I don't know how it is over there, but definitely here in London, it's changed from COVID to the strikes.
Yeah.
So everything, the industry's changed quite a lot.
In what way? How would you describe the change?
Um, well, COVID, all theatre fell apart, disappeared. So it
Yeah.
meant that but then film and TV was thriving because everyone was wanting content and to be at home and be entertained. So they weren't out and about. So people were just pushing stuff on TV. So that was thriving. And I was personally like it kind of went quite well because then I started going to that field.
Mm-hmm.
But then theatre theatre was getting back on its feet. And then as theatre was getting back on its feet, they had the strikes happened in LA, which stopped loads of production stuff happening over here. So it meant that everyone from the industry in film and TV all came and saturated the theatre world. So they pushed out a lot of like where it's hair and makeup, whether it's like, backstage, whether it's performers. And you've seen this massive shift in high profile names from Hollywood who are going into West End theatres now. Um, and that's having a knock on effect on people's, other actors who would normally take those roles. So it's this everything's merging now and crossing over. And so it's not like someone who's really, really famous would just be in Hollywood now. They are also coming over because Hollywood's kind of getting changed and moving around, and a lot of
Mm.
things being filmed in London as well, so that then they're already over here and there's connections. So it's just a change. It's like being hard, but I think also it's there are great things coming out of it, and theatre is changing. A lot of theatre is becoming very commercial because
Really?
yeah, it really, because it's been such a struggle after COVID. The directors across the board are just leaving, artist directors leaving theatres because they're just not getting enough funding. They feel like they're not being creatives then anymore, and they're feeling like they are basically just have to keep up this business side of things for it to just run.
Right. Okay.
And I think that so there's a lot of big change, so new people coming in, and people are realizing, and it's one of those things when things get hard, you have to think of ways to adapt and
Yeah.
how to survive, and that's what theatre's going through at the moment. And I think that there will be an outcome which will be moving the art form forward, and
Yeah.
it is definitely, they kind of know that they can't stay in the old ways of doing it. You can't do it anymore. You'll just sink. You can't rely on doing marketing through paper ads and just billboards, and do you know what I mean? Like I remember was it Regent's Park, and it was like they've still got like a whole range of marketing that they do, which they've been doing for the last like 50 years. And we were like, you just can't, this thing, it's not going to work. So it's going to forces theaters to bring in people who can think outside the box and think creatively, ironically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Um, and you can't get the people in, you can't share the work. So it's this weird mix between, I think it's really become this mix between wanting to do the art form, but it has to be able to, money wise, financially wise, has to be viable.
Yeah. Of
Otherwise,
course.
it's just not going to survive. So you're not getting much support from the government anymore in terms of arts funding. So it's a whole different shift from,
Wow.
especially from like, I would say like from 20 years ago, it's completely different. Like the dance world, the kind of contemporary dance world, pretty much doesn't really exist. It's not, you have your Rambert dance companies, and that's about it. Like all the small companies can't really survive anymore.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, loads of dancers are moving into commercial work. So they're either being like models slash dancers,
Right.
because it's not, you can't get a contract that's gonna you can be able to survive on. Whereas before you could go, oh, I'm gonna do a job with that small company or that odd project there or that. But because these smaller projects aren't getting money from the government anymore,
Yeah.
then they don't exist. So yeah, everyone's diversifying like crazy. Yeah.
How is that affecting the types of shows that you often work on? Because you often work on things that obviously have movement and contemporary and physical theatre integrated.
Yeah.
What have you noticed about what's changed in that specific world?
I would say in the theatre, people are going more down that route, I would say, bringing different disciplines together because it's trying to appeal to so many demographics. So, for instance, like now the Old Vic, it's actually press night tonight. There's a show on which is Hoffer Schechter is doing the movie
Yeah.
on it, and a theatre the artist director who's going to be leaving, is his show, and it's got two stars, massive stars in it, and it's obviously theatre. So you look at that and you know what they've done there. They've gone, let's get Hover Schechter because he'll bring in all the audience who love, know about his work, and from the contemporary dance world and the physical theatre world.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but also, we're going to bring in people who want to see the stars in the film world, and then we're going to also bring in all the theatre world as well.
Wow.
So
Okay.
people are doing things like that much more. So that's how it's changed. So in some ways it's great because it's meaning you can't just stick in, oh, we're just going to do a play, unless it's critically acclaimed writing, the writers, renowned all over the world, or whatever, or a director. You've got to merge different things, where it's puppetry. Puppetry is like, going crazy. After, obviously, there's Warhorse, and then there's Life of Pi, and then there was like, there's all these other things that are starting to come out because they're realizing that actually it's bringing in audiences to watch puppets come to life. And so I think that's the positive of it, that it is in that realm, is there is work being made like that, because they know that you can't, a lot of the stuff that's just, straight plays or straight dance, or it's going to be a really hard to kind of get going, basically.
Right. Have you seen it, the Hofesh play?
No, I was hoping to go tonight,
Okay.
but yeah, it's
Not
apparently very hard to get in for tonight.
Yeah.
So
A
I
friend
haven't
of
seen
mine
it.
went to see it. It must have been through previews then, and he was like, "I wish you could see this. It's so good. It's totally your type of thing. You'd love it."
Yeah, I'm gonna have to probably buy a ticket, which I really don't want to do. So I'm probably gonna have to do that. Yeah, so
Fair enough.
that's what. Yeah, I will. Yeah, I'll probably go and see it. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks. I mean, I've seen a few clips on social media, obviously,
Mm,
and yeah, it looks pretty good. So
yeah.
I'm gonna check in on what I wanted to ask you. What
Yeah.
have you
Yeah.
watched
Yeah.
recently? Yeah. So I mean, it's interesting listening to all the things you said. So I'm gonna come back to some of that. But what can you talk about your approach as a choreographer and a movement director? Can you chat a bit about that?
Yeah.
Do you have a specific method approach?
Yeah. Well, I always start, like, when I get the script. It's
Mm-hmm.
always from the script, because I feel like everything kind of branches off that. And so it also, as much as I'm severely dyslexic, so like working with, looking at text and stuff like this has always been a thing that I've had to push myself through in order to
Right.
get the end product, whether it's, especially with acting, going,
Mm-hmm.
right, I'm going to have to push through doing this to be able to get there. So it's kind of a similar thing, but now I've kind of embraced it in a different way, where it's, I read the script and it's however I interpret it, I start to see it kind of come to life in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very, very visual. So what I'll do is I'll very much like go read it, and I'll see it playing out how I think, my brain, not how I think it should be played out, exactly how it comes across to me in
Yeah.
my mind. And then I will go, maybe it's really easy. I'll read it and there might be some stage directions or something. And I'll go, oh, idea came in, right, write that down. So I've got one idea.
Mm-hmm.
What I'll try and do is, like, throughout the play, whether it's one of the directors gone, right, these are the section I want you to look at, I'll get 3 ideas for each section.
Okay.
So I'll go, right, that section, we could go down that direction. What else could I do with that? How could it be? What kind of stylistic quality could it be? Or if it's a dream sequence, what kind of other aspects of kind of making it dreamlike or surreal, or like something that's uneasy? What is that movement? And so then I'll
Mm-hmm.
write those ideas down, and then I'll kind of go, either I'll start to use one of those ideas and start to bring it to life on my own, kind of like go, oh, yeah, that could be like that, and that could be like that. And I might try a few things out and go, yeah, that'll work. Okay, tick. And that's
Mm-hmm.
how I kind of go through the script and get those initial ideas. And then I can go to the director and I can start kind of giving and kind of pitching these things. And if they kind of ring true to them, then they go, yeah, let's try that one. Yeah, that sounds great. Give a go with that one, Or sometimes just go, oh, can I try something with a couple of actors or something? And that would be, if we're in research and development process, that's so helpful. And that's what I realized so much. It's so funny because the difference between being an actor and performer doing research and development, to being a creative is the other side of the coin, because when you go in as an actor, it's terrifying. I'll put my hand up. I say I don't like doing R&Ds. I don't like
Really?
them as a performer. No, I've tried to go, yeah, I like them. And it's so freeing and so creative. Unless I'm with very specific people, there's only a few people that I can go into the room and know I'm completely safe. Like, so for so many reasons, I've been in like bigger productions. I've been kind of exploited. So my creativity is being exploited. It's being filmed over and over again. I'm coming up with stuff. They're just filming it, and then they're literally getting me to teach someone else, and then they're using that footage for months and months to teach people in the actual cast. And it's just like, and I'm getting paid minimum wage. So I've been burned in that way. So there's that, but there's also the fact that you're always on the back foot. You don't know what they're going to tell you to do, and you have to kind of be this blank canvas. And if you know them and you trust them, it's much easier to do that, because you
Yeah.
know they know you and they know like how you work. But if you don't know, if they don't know and you don't know, they'll just throw something and you're going, oh, I've got to just, what do I do in this situation? Okay, okay, I can try and make this work. And you try and throw yourself into it, but it does. But it's like you're always doing your work. The work, what you're doing, and you're giving out, is you're so vulnerable, because you're showing the worst part of yourself. You haven't worked on anything. You don't know what you're about to do. You're not prepped. You've got nothing. So you're showing you as a creative and as a performer at kind of your worst with a director who hasn't actually given you a job. They might be potential for a job. So it's like an audition that you haven't prepped for, if that makes sense.
It
Um,
does. But Ira, I've seen you in those situations, and if that's your worst, then I don't know what to say.
oh, thank you. But yeah, it is hot. It is like feels like that. But then going in as a creative, it's like it's amazing, because you've got all these ideas in your head that you can't actually get to do on your own. You get into a studio and you go, oh my god, I get to try this and try that, and can you try this and can you try that? And then you go away and you talk to the director and you're going, that worked, that didn't work. And then you go, right, okay, we've learned so much from that to move forward and go, yeah,
Yeah.
that will work. So it's so exciting. It's
Mm-hmm.
like so energetic and so exciting. And then you can take that into the rehearsal process moving forward. um
Yeah.
so yeah, it's very, very different ways of seeing it.
Of interest, because of your experience as a performer in R&Ds that you haven't, the ones that you haven't enjoyed, or even the ones that you have, how have they like informed the way that you then run R&Ds? Like, are you aware of not wanting to do certain things or take certain ways that some people work that you liked, and sort of like, has that affected how you approach it?
Yeah, I think so. I think that the main thing is, I feel that I love, and I do this in all like my workshops and stuff, is when you start a workshop, everyone it's just an awkward like space. The
Mm-hmm.
first moment everyone walks in to do an R&D, some people know each other, some people don't. It's a bit like a first day of rehearsal in a way. Or you can do a read through. People are terrified. People are like going, are they gonna, it's just a weird space. So what I'll do is get everyone in the room, and then I'll just start getting people into their bodies and being present and letting go of, and trying doing these breathing exercises, try and connect people in the room, having basically moving and doing things that are fun, that basically breaks them out of the anxiety of being in their mind, and doing
Yeah.
something that is physical enough that it's means that, and it keeps them alert that they are in the moment. So that then, and the best, I get this from my wife actually, who works with kids, and she does workshops with kids, and she talks about how the thing she never does is go, right, we're about to, we're all going to sit on the floor, and then we're going to do X, Y, and Z, blah blah blah. She never explains what they're going to do, And I'm not
Okay.
saying you don't explain what you do, but when you're in a warm up, it's so great to be doing something and then go, right, everyone to the floor, or right, we're going to do this, or come over here. It means that you're not analyzing what is going on and what's expected of you. So
Mm-hmm.
you're in a constant state. It's something to do with the left brain and right brain, but you're in a part of the brain which is the creative part of the brain and the present part of the brain,
Right.
which keeps them mainly in until they're like told to do something or told off. And so that's what I try and keep them in as much as possible in the warm up. And so that then it can start falling into something, but it feels like it's not like I'm putting all this pressure on you.
Right.
Because I think that is very different when you get into rehearsal process. You expect to, you've got to, you're going to have to start learning your lines. There's expectation of a performer to do certain things as the job.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to put it on its feet. You're gonna have to come up with ideas. And in an R&D, I think that you don't know who your character is. You don't know anything. You could be asked to do this character or this character. So getting them as free as possible and trusting you as a leader
Yeah.
is, I think that's the best thing you can do, and you're going to get the best out of the performance. And so it's really helped being a performer for as long as I have, moving into the kind of area I'm moving into now, because I know how vulnerable it feels to be an actor.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. And
And it also, just on that, it really helps with figuring out who is really into movement and who is terrified of it, because it's very easy as movers to go, I'm really comfortable with this, let's just do this. But it's a bit like if I was asked to just sight read something off the bat, I just fill up with dread. And
mm-hmm.
so I can see when people are tensing and it's not there, they're starting to go into the fear place, that then I can adapt it individual, like, to different people, and see what the general sense is. So I always kind of go, who, sometimes I've been working with like people who are 82,
Mm-hmm.
and in the same room someone who's 17. So you've
Yeah.
got to go, right, how can I incorporate get them to do something that's going to get them where I need them to be and they want to be, but I can't be, throwing people around when I've got an 82-year-old.
Yeah. And when you then move into the actual like creation with people or exploration with people, are there specific techniques or methods that you use, or do you have your own games you play, or like do you have specific things that you always do, or does it just completely depend on the project?
I always have like a kind of, like tools that I always use, like
Mm-hmm.
to kind of start off, especially at the beginning. And a lot of it's to do with connecting with each other as ensemble, and listening um, to the group, and not, again, it's that thing of whatever can get you out of the self of just being like me, 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 me. I've got to prepare, I've got to do this, I've got to, because everyone does it, everyone goes into themselves. And what it is trying to kind of get them to connect to everyone else and the room, and kind of not be looking inward. And so I have exercises, whether it's like trust exercises, where they do this thing where they do the falling thing, where they shout fall and everyone goes and helps them down.
Mm-hmm.
That gets people to connect. It's a really simple thing, but what it does is the rest of the group go, oh my God, we can't let this person fall on the ground. Straight
Mm-hmm.
away, it creates this caring environment, straight away, caring for another person. So it takes it off the individual, off you, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so, like, yeah, I have lots of different, whether it's running around spatial stuff, whether it's kind of what else do I have? I have things where there's lots of like doing stuff where you're using voice, where you're like doing like pulling or pushing, but you're saying it as you're doing it, or falling to the ground and you're using your voice. So it's not that you're just now I'm moving and now I'm talking. How can they both connect together? Because your voice is your body and vice versa. And I think sometimes like, oh, we're doing voice now, we're doing movement now. And it's actually like, well, we're all like connected. And so
Yeah.
I try and connect all of that together using the both. And so you feel like three-dimensional. But yeah, and then obviously, depending on what the project is, then I will adapt it as well. Like I'll have some adaptations throughout, depending on, oh, we may work on this. So then I might do some work around some ideas I have. Again, a similar thing, what we're talking about before, so that people don't feel like, right, we're going to do a task, that I actually incorporate it into like just the kind of movement warm up, and then we can actually come up with some things I might have where I'll just like do this, and then go, okay, is this working? And then it's actually for the piece.
Okay.
Do you see what I mean? Or it can help an idea kind of come alive for maybe a scene that we're working on later that day. But yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
So as in like you start them doing something that you don't tell them that it's like a task or an exercise or an exploration specifically. You just continue the sort of warm up and continue.
Yeah,
with
like it's
that.
a warm up, and it feels like an organic kind of process into another movement thing. But the
Yeah.
movement thing, it just means that they're not judging themselves and the work, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
more you can do that, the more I feel like you're going to be you're in the part of the brain that's the most creative part of the brain, which is the freest part of the brain, which is the kind of child.
Yeah,
As
yeah, yeah.
soon as you start putting as soon as you start putting headings for things, you go, right, now we're creating, I've got to put that on. Whereas actually you're always creating. And the more kind of you can break those boxes, I think the better.
Yeah.
Because it's like I do an exercise in my workshops where I go, well, I want you to come from that side of the room to that side, and it'll be like I'll do these things where I use restrictions. So, and I'll say the only restriction you have to do is keep your hands on your body all times. Your palms can't come off, but you can do, and it's coming across the floor, and you're using different ways to express yourself but keeping to this restriction. It's the one rule. And then they come across and they all come in lines like this. And then I'll do like something where I'll kind of break their perception of what it is. So like I'll like run into people's faces, and then I'll like be going backwards, and I'm running in circles, and they'll just be like, what the hell are you doing? And then afterwards I'll be like, the only restriction I gave you was to come that side whilst doing your hands. I didn't say you couldn't go sideways and backwards. I didn't say that you can't go in circles. I didn't say that you couldn't talk, like interact with each other. Do you know what I mean? I didn't say you couldn't use the walls. But what ends up happening from like schooling, people
Yeah.
just go, right, straight line from here to here. And they literally just do that, and they put their blinkers on, and they just do the whole thing, and they just stay in their own world.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're missing on so many opportunities, and it's not your fault, but we've been taught from school and society that when we get a dash, we make it as rigid as possible,
Yeah, yeah.
and we don't go around that, and we're putting extra restrictions on top of restrictions on top of restrictions.
Yeah, but we're not even aware of it.
We're not
Like,
aware of it.
yeah.
Yeah, they're innate in us, that we've learned that from being children. And so I try and break that down of the looking at the possibilities, how far you can go with exercises. So you're not, so then, yeah, the possibilities become much wider.
Great. This wasn't one of my things that I said I was going to ask you, but I'm wondering how that relates to your animal and character work, because you created your like online workshop
Yes.
course,
Yeah.
and which I've watched and it's fantastic. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you.
And yeah, I'm wondering like because I find when I explore animal and character and creature work with people that they read that like I guess I'm working a lot more with actors than dancers, but some people are crossing over.
Yeah,
But even dancers that I've worked with, there's still a lot of limitations. Like people really limit themselves, and I'm
yeah.
wondering, have you like how do you approach that kind of work when you're really trying to get people to explore like more stylized and extreme physicality? Because I find also I can get people to the more extremes, and then as soon as they start doing a scene they completely pull it back. Like it's
Yeah,
like they kind of separate. That was exploring, but now I'm doing a scene. Like they completely sort of like strip a lot of it away. And I'm
yeah,
wondering if you've come across that and how you encourage people to like go beyond what they think they should be doing.
yeah. I think, can I split that up into two, that
Yeah, of
question?
course.
So,
Yeah.
kind of the first one, in terms of like the animal kind of embodying, I think that I feel that, like you said, and like I was talking about in terms of putting restrictions on ourselves, I
Mm-hmm.
think that there is a thing of, you see an animal that is like an animal that kind of feels more, is faster and stronger, and is like grander in some ways. And so then you kind of feel inferior as a human to this animal that you're trying to embody. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that, so then you end up giving restrictions, because then you go, well, I'm just a human compared to this animal. And so then this caricature of the animal can come out. So
Yeah.
that all the things that you've learned, what it's like to be to pretend to be a cat, or the things you've seen. And even if you don't do that, I think that then you're going, well, I can't do much because I haven't got that body. But
Mm-hmm.
actually, I really think it all starts with the psychology of the animal. So it starts with what it's like if you go into the animal's psyche and start from there, and then you see the world as an animal, and
Mm-hmm.
then you can start to use your body in different, using it in different ways to represent different parts of that animal, rather
Yeah.
than thinking my hands have to be the hands of the animal, or my like my back is the back of the animal. Whereas a big animal, your back could be the neck of the animal, because the animal's so big. That then changes the whole feel and the essence of what you're portraying. So
Yeah.
it's reframing what you are embodying. You're embodying the essence and the spirit and the psychology of the animal. You're more likely to believe it as the performer, and the person from the outside will be able to see it because you truly believe it, rather
Mm-hmm.
than trying to use your body form to replicate and like an animal, like to the side of like an animal would. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because you don't truly believe it, because you know that your body isn't as strong or fast, or and so then I think that limits so much creativity.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing I would say, is like getting into, if it's to do with animals, is to get into the psychology of the animal, um, and start to play around with the different possibilities. A bit like in my workshop, where I'll do things that are really simple, of just putting your body in different spaces, and then seeing what animal starts to come arise from that.
Yeah.
The feel from inside, what is it feeling? Oh, am I feeling like an ape when my chest's out? When it's curved, what am I feeling like a sloth? Like, what
Mm-hmm.
characters come up by putting my body in space, and it's coming from internal. And
Yeah.
then you
Okay.
can build slowly, to kind of what intricacies then you can play around with, whether it's the breath, whether it's the eyes, whether it's the twitches, whether it's the like the pace from fast to slow. And then you can slowly start building this character. But I think essentially you have the foundation of where you're starting, needs to be really going to the base level of the core of that character. And then going to the other side of what you were saying about working with actors, working with them and getting them to like be maybe more expressive in certain things, or things a bit more highlighted in movement. And then they do the actual scene, and then it kind of falls away pretty quickly. I think I would just on what that I probably would start doing then is I'd go, right, let me go a bit like I was saying before about people going, because they're going to a scene, they go, scene. I'm putting my scene hat on. Right. And then they fall back into the old traits of how they did that scene.
Yeah.
So what I would do is try and break that boundary down and go, right, take them to the side and go, can we go back to that movement again? And just, yeah. And as you do it, just start to do a few of the lines. So it's out of the scene. Do you see what I mean? The scene.
Yeah.
And they're in another space. And then I just start to get them to do that text whilst doing this extreme movement. And so then go do it over and over and free them up from the scene and get them to even improvise some of the movement whilst they're doing the thing, until they get to a point where they are seeing a different space, and then try and see if then it would bleed, and then they go into the scene because they've done the text and the movement in a different space and they know how it feels. So they now feel safer to go into the scene and actually explore it.
Yeah. It's I definitely noticed that difference when you explore the text in a more explorative way. It's interesting because some people, I think, even still, like, it depends. Some people still even struggle a little bit with that. It's like as soon as they're saying their lines, maybe it's because they've rehearsed it.
Yeah.
And they then just really struggle to stay present physically. But yeah, it's
Yeah, because if you've rehearsed it, it's like I said, the voice and the body are connected. So if you've rehearsed it in a certain way, you look a certain place when you've rehearsed it, or you do a moment where you have a thought in the scene and you tilt your head, it means that then you're programming all that memory to the words. So every time you come to, your body will want to do it because you've rehearsed it so many times, rather than keeping it freed up with the text, and knowing the text is just free, and you know the text, but you haven't used the body as anchors to learn the text. And I know, because I'm severely dyslexic, I do a lot of stuff where I will use physical things to learn the text to anchor them. So I know that then I'll have to re-anchor them when I'm playing around with it again. So you just have to be aware of when actors do learn lines, that how they learning them, because it means it's not just, oh, I've learned them. Yeah, but then how can you stay freed up to explore and use those lines in the most interesting way? Because if you've learned a certain way and you know you've learned that way, then you know how to undo it. But if you don't know that that's what you're doing, then you're struggling because you're just going, oh my god, I can't do it like that.
Yeah, that reminds me of, I remember someone I worked with where I was getting them to try different rhythms and exploring some different physicalities and doing some different games while they were saying text. But there was one thing that they said the same every single time, and I was like, are you aware you're saying that same thing every time? Because that means you're not actually allowing yourself to play with the different things. You're physically playing, but then you're actually limiting your physical play by you wanting to say that line a specific way, maybe because you've learned it that way, or that's your expectation of how it should be said. But yeah, it's interesting. So what do you think for people who are so a lot of the students that I work with here interested in musical theatre, but also really physical theatre and devising and that kind of world, where do you notice people are coming from training wise, or do you know programs that blend those kind of worlds?
I'm so bad at like knowing that kind of thing of like training. Because I did my training and then I was like, right, I'm done. I did 5 years of my life. I just trained hardcore and I just gave everything to ballet and contemporary. And then once I was in the industry, I was just then kind of learning different ways of performing or different doing acting or bits of singing or whatever it was through the industry. But in terms of like people coming into the industry, what was the question about the people coming into the industry? Have I noticed? You're saying, have I
Well,
noticed?
do you notice specific places that actors are training or performers are training? Like are a lot of them coming from certain colleges or education places,
Right.
or is
Okay.
it completely varied? Is it like
I would say in theatre, obviously as actors, it's obviously mainly drama schools, which
okay,
are like I would say like a mixture of London-based drama schools, really, like East 15 or RADA or Mount View, Guildhall. So they are
okay,
coming from those kind of places. And then obviously there's crossover with dancers like myself, came from more of a dance background, and then they kind of maybe merge into going into acting or musical theatre. Obviously, musical theatre world is obviously very different as well.
mm-hmm,
So yeah, it's because I'm mainly in like kind of like acting with
yeah,
movement
yeah,
rather than singing, which I think it does make a big difference. It's a very different world. Sometimes I cross over into like the puppetry world, and I know some of the people from there.
and where did you train, Ira?
Northern School of Contemporary Dance in Leeds.
Okay. And
Yeah.
when did you do additional training in other areas when you left? Like, did you
No.
go and do specific acting training or like extra things, or you just then started to just learn through
Yeah,
projects?
my first job, I wasn't going to be doing any acting. Like it was not on the agenda at all. I wanted to be a contemporary dancer. And that was it. And then I got a job with DV8, and then that was kind of my first job, and it was like learning text and learning characters, and that's when I fell in love with characters and text and characterization. So that's when then I was going to the Actors Centre in
Mm,
Covent Garden. So I did do a few courses there that because I was like, right, I need some kind of something to kind of hone some of the rawness that I had. So I was doing that, but then I was using my dance as a vehicle to get into theatre. So like with Rufus on Feast and stuff like that. So I was using my dance skills so that then I could be in the areas of actors and acting and learning how text is. And then I started learning that way. And I did that for a while until I was like, right, no more ensemble work. I've done a lot of that. I want to actually because I didn't realize what was happening was that I was doing a bit of dance and I was doing a bit of acting, and I was not actually doing either of them at my top capacity.
yeah.
So then I was like, right, I'm going to have to start just going, I'm going to take a role. And then eventually, yeah, it kind of built up. And actually, I kind of denied a lot of my dance to be taken seriously at the beginning. And that was kind of hard. Slightly different now, I think the industry's slightly different. They don't see it in that as so structured or rigid. But especially back then, it was like right, I've got to be taken seriously as an actor. I can't show my dance. And then
Mm,
down the road, once I'd kind of done some bigger roles as an actor, and I still physical, but there were good roles, I was like, actually, what am I doing? I need to bring my dance back and my movement back into these characters now. And that's
mm,
when I felt like it was the start of it was like a new chapter for me. It was like, oh, I'm coming back to who I really am, if that makes
mm-hmm,
sense. And I'm creating my own niche. And I felt like I then got known in the theatre world, especially as the person who can move and do and act at a high level and merge them well together. But I had to go through this whole phase of being a dancer, being an actor, and then going, oh, I put them both together. And then COVID hit, and then we're all just indoors. So great. So yeah, but then yeah, and then I started making my own work and stuff. Um, yeah, I think that yeah. I've forgotten what the question was now. I've just gone off on one
it
about
was
myself.
about training, and I asked you where you trained and how
Oh yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
evolved into that.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's the difficult thing I find as well, because I trained a long time ago, and I
Hmm.
similarly feel like the way I trained isn't like the theatre world has evolved. It wasn't like it is even. I don't know what it's like exactly now, but what I experienced wasn't what I trained for. And
Yes.
so the things that I now teach and the way that I like to work and all of that, I didn't learn in my training. I learned it through, like you said, through like the people I
Yeah.
work with, the jobs I did, the workshops I did, and that like just slowly evolved. And I'm interested in like whether that has, and you know, I don't expect that you would know, but I just wondered what your thoughts were, because I'm interested in how much that has now influenced training, like if that is being taught to reflect what is now in theatre or not.
Right. Okay.
I'll keep asking different people to see if I like what other people are aware of.
Yeah, I know that the mindset of the kind of more younger generation coming through is very different, just because the way the world is now.
Yeah.
So I know like the training's very different. It's not as
Mm-hmm.
rigorous at all. There is
Right.
definitely a whole thing where I've heard from a lot of performers, and like because it was so far one way, it's kind of gone another way because they were basically abused
Mm-hmm.
in so many manners of that word as
Yeah.
training, that it's kind of really changed the dynamics, changed a lot in training over here.
Yeah.
It's like people aren't turning up. From what I'm hearing from teachers, and people are dealing with their mental health. People are the rigor of like training has definitely diminished, and so and that's obviously a reflection of how the world is, I think.
Yeah.
And whether it's social media, whether it's like being pulled from different directions, like attention, all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think that things it's very hard to spend really dedicated time and attention on one thing and
Mm-hmm.
just dedicate yourself to that training. I think I can't imagine what I would be like now. It'd be really difficult to achieve what I achieved in today's world because we didn't have phones. Like I didn't have internet on my phone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was in the gym just stretching for like 3 hours a day after all my classes because all I was
Mm-hmm.
obsessed with was just getting more flexible. But
Mm-hmm.
like spending that amount of time must be really tricky, I think, for people to do that. And also, you know, I feel like people who are training have more, they have actually a lot, they have more power because they are told that they need to take control of their own lives and not be treated in a certain way, which is
Mm-hmm.
completely true, I feel. But then also they have more power because they're paying so much
Yeah.
physical money. And so it's because of that, it also changed the dynamic within in teaching schools.
Yeah.
So there's a whole thing that's happening, I think. Some people think they'd rather it be this way, which is, yeah, one thing. But I think that there is also something that is really sad about what the students aren't getting because teachers now potentially there is a fear of upsetting
Yeah.
or like that there is going to be a backlash to the teacher.
Yeah.
And most teachers want to just push them to be better
Yeah.
and what is uncomfortable. And I think that's also another thing is like, what is the line of uncomfortability and what just so it's uncomfortable doesn't mean it's bad. And I think we were a generation where it's very much like, it was like, we'll push ourselves way beyond like what is considered like probably healthy. But the flip side of that is that it means that you know what being uncomfortable is, and knowing that actually that pain is a good pain because it's growth. So
Yeah.
it's such a
Yeah.
without being uncomfortable you can't grow.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot with our students, that there's the three kind of circles of your comfort zone, your growth zone, and your like
Mm,
danger or pain zone, or whatever. There's different
right.
ways to call it. But you know, if you just stay in your comfort zone, you're never going to grow, and you have to move in out and just be aware of where you're kind of
Yeah.
limits are, but still live in your, like, as much as possible to stay in your growth zone, which will,
Yeah.
and be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable.
If
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, I realize you probably have to go, right?
Yeah. Probably
Yeah.
finish up a bit. Yeah. But also, I just wanted to say about the masterclass as well.
Yeah.
Just maybe, should I send you the email address in case anyone wants to look it up?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can send it, and then you can send it on or whatever, or put it into.
I can add a link. I can add a link to your masterclass in however I share
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, that'd be great. But yeah, it's great to see you again.
It's great to see you too.
Yeah.
I actually really want to chat more because I want to know more about your own projects and what you're doing.
Yeah.
But we'll have to catch up another time.
Yeah. That's fine.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for chatting. It's really interesting. Like, I feel like I've been in a little, I mean, I have come back and forward, but
Yeah.
like to the UK a bit, but it's always been so short periods of time. I haven't been able to see many people and do a lot. So
Yeah.
I feel like I've been in this since COVID and I arrived
Right.
here. I've been in like a strange parallel universe.
Wow.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll be back soon and
Yeah, let me
keep
know.
updated with what you're
Yeah.
up to.
Yeah, will do.
Thanks, Ira.
All right. Have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Yeah,
Speak
thank
soon.
you. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.